Hey, what's important to you? Kind of a big question, I know. That's the point. Let me explain a little bit. I think that myself and other people often spend times worrying about things and investing their time in things that really aren't important to them. Oftentimes, after hearing that I've spent 11 years in prison, people will say, "How did you do it?" Or they will say, "Oh man, I couldn't have done it." But you can. Anybody can do it. But there's a way that it has to be done. The way that I did it, I sat down and I thought about what really mattered to me. I came up with a set of things that mattered to me that were based on principles rather than things. I wrote it out. I committed it to paper. I developed a purpose based off of that. That's what I committed to paper. And it was very similar to a mission statement that you would write for a business or organization. What's really interesting, or something that I find interesting, is that we write mission statements for businesses and organizations to ensure that the activities of the organization are working towards the overall goals of the organization. In other words, they tell the business if what they're doing is effective, if they're spending their time and resources effectively. Is what you're doing getting you closer to your goals or not? We do that for businesses and organizations, but we don't often do that in our lives. But I did that. And it worked great because it was based on principles rather than things. Principles are universal. They can be applied anywhere, anytime. It doesn't matter what your social standing is. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, what your political views are, what your location is. It doesn't matter. You could be in prison. You could be free. You could be rich, poor, here, in another country. Doesn't matter. And so I had this purpose, these goals that were based on principles that I could work towards every day. Every day, if I did something that brought me closer to accomplishing those goals, then I didn't feel like my time was wasted. My time was being used effectively. What's more is it gave me the strength to endure a lot of adversity. In the Second World War, there was a guy named Viktor Frankl. He was placed in a concentration camp. Now, Victor was what we would call today a psychologist. I'm not sure if they called him that back then, but that's what he was. And he was imprisoned in a concentration camp. The conditions sucked. Very little food, very little medical care, and very heavy workloads. But he observed people. And one of the things that he noticed was that despite people having the same conditions, for example, despite some people having the same food, the same medical care, and the same workload, oftentimes there would be those who would live and those who would die. And the common factor that he found between the people who lived was purpose. The people who lived had a reason to live. They had a reason to carry on. And from his observations and experiences, Viktor Frankl later developed a type of therapy called Logotherapy. It was his therapeutic approach. And one of the ideas behind it was He who has a why can withstand any how. Meaning, if you have a reason to carry on, if you have a purpose in your life, you can withstand just about any adversity life can throw at you. So, each day I had a definite purpose and a goal that I would work towards. And as long as I was working towards that goal, I didn't feel like my life was wasted. I was in max prisons, I was in medium prisons, minimum facilities. I had it good in there and I had it bad in there. I was on 23-hour lockdown at one point, and I was working on a road crew at one point. And whatever circumstance I found myself in, it didn't matter, because my principles, my goals were based on principle. Now, what I came up with was pretty simple. What mattered to me was developing in each of the 4 quadrants, doing something each day to develop in each of the 4 quadrants, and I'll explain the 4 quadrants in a minute. Doing something each day to enjoy myself, taking time to notice the small things in life, and taking time each day to enhance the quality of life of others. The 4 quadrants is a concept that was developed by Stephen Covey, and it's presented in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you've never read it, I would very highly recommend it. I read it when I was in El Dorado, and I taught a self-help class with the JCs based on that book. The 4 quadrants are in that book, and it's a concept where Covey breaks the aspects of the human creature into 4 parts. You have a spiritual part, an intellectual part, a social part, and a physical part. We are a multifaceted being, and if we are going to develop, we have to develop holistically. You can't just develop in one facet of your life. And so, one of my goals was to do something each day to develop in each of the 4 quadrants. Doing something to develop spiritually is pretty easy to accomplish. Each of these are easy to accomplish. Spiritual development could be anything from, and it's going to vary depending upon your spiritual background, but it could be anything from praying, studying a religious text, carrying out a spiritual practice like giving to somebody in need or practicing spiritual listening. It'll vary depending upon your background, but it's really easy to do. Intellectual development is doing one thing each day that facilitates learning. So, reading a book, engaging someone in conversation that might know something about a topic that you're interested in, but you don't really know that much about, who can help you learn about it. It could be fueling your mind with the right fuel by ingesting food that is good for your mind and body. And that is important because your brain makes up roughly 2% of your body's mass, but it consumes 20% of your body's energy. So putting the right fuel in is pretty important. But it's not hard to do something each day to facilitate learning and intellectual development. And that last practice, fueling your body and mind, ties into the physical aspect as well, because you need to put the correct fuel into your body to get the most out of it. But physical development might also entail working out. things like that. Stretching, getting enough sleep. That is all good for your body and your mind. Social development could be something like meeting new people, making new friends, building upon existing relationships, writing a letter to a loved one, spending time with someone, building yourself up socially, making connections with others. So, I wanted to do something each day that met those goals. The other things that I wanted to do each day were pretty simple as well. I wanted to do something to enjoy myself. I wanted to do something every day that I enjoy. And it doesn't have to be something big. It could be something simple. I like singing. So, I might take time to sing a song or play some music, listen to a song I like, read a book, go for a walk, smell something that I enjoy the aroma of, eat something that I like to eat, spend time with someone that I enjoy being around, listening to a joke, reflecting upon a memory in your past that brings you happiness, something that you enjoy quite a bit. That's all different ways that you could enjoy yourself. But also, I wanted to take time to enjoy the little things in life. There's probably thousands of things that we overlook every day, things that we take for granted. For me, it's something as simple as listening to the birds in the morning, listening to them sing, listening to the rain or the thunder, looking at stars. There's all sorts of little things around us that we fail to appreciate. But if we take the time, they're very beautiful. The final thing that I wanted to do was do something each day to enhance the quality of life of people around me. I wanted to do something nice for people. And that's really simple as well. You don't have to do anything super complicated. Sometimes the best thing that you can give to somebody is yourself. Give them your time. Listen to them. Spend time with them. Make them a cup of coffee. Make them something cool to eat. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be all sorts of things. It's easy to do something nice for another person. And so those things were things that I identified that were important to me, and things that I could do just about anywhere, despite my circumstance, social standing, anything like that. Not based on time, location, none of that. I could be young, old, wherever, I can do those things. What's really cool about that, now I said that I had committed that stuff to writing, and I did. I wrote all that stuff down on a piece of paper, and I carried it in my pocket, and I carry it in my pocket to this day. And the reason why I do that is so I have a tangible reminder of what's important to me. If there's something bothering me, for example, in prison, gossip is big in prison. Everybody's concerned about what everybody else is doing. Image and reputation are huge on the yard. But I had what was important to me written down on a piece of paper. And if gossip was bothering me, I could pick up that piece of paper, and guess what? Nowhere on it did it say I cared about what everybody else thought of me. Wasn't my priority, wasn't a part of my principles, values, wasn't important to me. Now the same thing could be said for material things. And this is one that I actually struggle with, because I have a lot of financial obligations that I frankly can't meet. And I worry about it. But when I get to worrying about things, the way that I pull out of it is I can pull out my piece of paper and I can look at it and I see that nowhere on there do I have to be wealthy or anything like that to meet my goals. Worst case scenario, if I'm homeless, dressed in rags, living under a bridge or on a street corner, I can still achieve my goals. My time is not wasted. The reason why I think this is so important is that people put a lot of effort into things that I don't think really matter to them. They put a lot of effort into things that they don't serve them. Long run, they could spend hours, or cumulatively, they might spend days or years doing things that serve, that they don't serve their purpose. They don't serve what's important to them. So they're putting all this time and energy and emotion into things that don't matter to them. And so having these things written down and committed to writing gives us something tangible by which we can measure our activities and our efforts. So we can see if we're spending our time effectively in meeting our goals. So, I need light. It's getting dark, and I'm scared. I hope this video has inspired you to do some reflecting upon what is important to you. And I would actually suggest you do something similar to what I did and commit to writing the things that are important to you. That way, when things are bothering you, you can sit back, examine your principles and priorities, and seeing if it really matters. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope it inspired you to really think about what you're doing, if it's worthwhile, if you're achieving your goals. I hope you all have a great day. I will catch you later.